Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And just a reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com, where you can always find our free Sunday gathering inspirational service with a medium demonstration included. Starts 2 p.m. New York time every single Sunday. It's been going on over 4 years now. We offer medium classes, all kinds of things. And of course, you can find all episodes from this podcast and also my second podcast on iHeartRadio. It's called Shades of the Afterlife, all at wedon'tdie.com. So in total, I have over 600 hours of episodes. So you know I am somebody committed to giving you the best reasons to believe in the afterlife, help through grief, and then most importantly, how to have a powerful life while we're here. So let me introduce you to our wonderful guest today. Claire Broad is a medium, teacher, healer, and author with now 27 years of experience and is accredited as a registered and approved medium with the Institute of Spiritualist Mediums. Claire is known as the Honest Medium and has appeared widely on radio and podcasts and is the author of 3 books, best-selling books too: Answers from Heaven, Incredible True Stories of Heavenly Encounters and the Afterlife, What the Dead Are Dying to Teach Us, Lessons Learned from the Afterlife. And her latest book is Heaven Sent, Soul Lessons from the Afterlife. To find out more about Claire, her books, her teachings, maybe book a one-on-one private session with her, and more, you can visit her website, which is clairebroad.com. Claire, new friend, welcome to We Don't Die Radio.
Thank you so much, Sandra, and to all your viewers and listeners. It's great to be here.
You're wonderful. And you're new to me, but I'm
Yes.
not new to you. You just said you've been following for years this show and my work. So it's nice to meet you one-on-one here. This is just great.
Oh, it's wonderful, honestly. I love what you're doing for the spirit world. You're an ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We share what we love and what makes a difference. And I know you do the same thing. So
Mm.
let us know. Lots of people like myself, you're new to us. Where do you live? And some background history of getting involved with the spirit world. Maybe, I mean, is this your first line of work? Tell us your story. I know something interesting happened when you were a little girl. Tell us about you,
Hmm.
Claire.
Thank you. I'll try and do a whistle stop tour because it's a lifetime of experience. So it is my full-time occupation now, but that would have never been on the radar for me when I was younger. But from a little girl, I was telling my mum, probably even from the age of 2. I could speak quite early. I could apparently read very early, and communication was something that seemed to come quite naturally as a child. And I was telling my mum, even from a very young age, that I could see a man in my room. At the time, she assumed that it probably was the people that had lived in the house before me. We now think it was probably my spirit guide who's been around all that time. But of course, she didn't have any idea about spiritualism, mediumship. I'm going to age myself here, but I'm talking about the 1970s. It just wasn't mainstream in people's understanding. They were going to church, it was Christian. My mum had a Christian faith, but she wasn't stoically religious. My dad was agnostic, or I would have said at the time atheist, but he's now changed his stance to agnostic. So I grew up in a very working class home. They didn't have much money. It was a very, very down to earth, but very loving family environment. And then by the age of 3, my granddad died. That was my mum's dad. As within the first year, we went to Richmond Cemetery, which is near London, where I grew up and where he was buried. And we were there at the graveside. Now, I didn't have any maturity at that age to worry about my nan's grief or how my mum was feeling. We just, as far as I was concerned, we'd gone out. We were walking through the cemetery. They were cleaning up his plot. And I was playing with a vase, some stones, and some water. And as I was playing, I felt my granddad just, his whole presence come over me like a blanket of love. I recognized him. I knew straight away it was him, but I didn't see him. I felt him and I heard him saying, "Claire, tell Nanny Granddad says I love you, Ive." So I was going, "No, I'm not doing that," because I was playing. I didn't have the emotional maturity to even think, "Hang on a minute, my granddad's died." There just was none of that was there. It just I was in the now. So I'm playing and I'm ignoring the inspiration, I suppose, but it felt more like a compulsion to stand up. And then I could hear my granddad saying, "Claire, please tell Nanny, Granddad says I love you, Ive." So in the end, I stood up. I could see my nan and my mum at the gate. They were nearly ready to go. And I'm shouting, "Nanny, Granddad says I love you, Ive." And I was quite cross. And I remember it so clearly because I remember my nan's mouth dropped. My mum was just looking, like, what? Because everybody called my nan Connie because she didn't like the name Ivy. Obviously, my mum called her mum. I called her nanny. The only person in the world that was allowed to call my nanny Ive or Ivy was my granddad.
That's
So
sweet.
it's very sweet. And he had crossed back to spirit when he was 57. She didn't go back home, as I call it, until she was 92. So she lived a long time without him. And that message kept her in the know that he was there because she said to me, "Out of the mouth of babes." So I had no, a lot of the argument on the skeptic side is that we're deluding ourselves, that we need to feel the comfort, that it makes us feel better to believe in an afterlife, all of that. And I'm not saying that some of that isn't even true, even, but at the age of nearly 4, I had no awareness or emotional maturity to be worried about any of that. So even I'm very skeptical, very analytical. I've had to go very much down the scientific route in order to feel comfortable, even in what was happening to me. But even with all the knowledge and all the scientists I've met, the thing that really keeps it true for me is when I go back to that moment, because I know that there was no other nothing going on except for pure exchange of love and eternal consciousness.
I bet it made a difference for your family as well, even not
Yes.
knowing or not believing or
Yes,
Christian
well, it
based.
it turns out that my nan had actually seen spirit people herself, but she'd not really said much about it because her grandmother was known to be, witchy, and had said a number of very insightful stories that had been passed down the family, but also had never done anything with it. So it clearly runs in the genes. It was just that this was my path. This was what I was going to be doing. So fast forward a little bit, Sandra, because obviously I'll go on all day. You'll have to tell me to be quiet.
I won't do that. We love stories.
Well, into my teenage years then. So I just had a very, if you want, very normal upbringing. It wasn't made a big deal of. Nobody dismissed what I'd said, but nobody made a big fanfare of it. And then in my teenage years, I started to see a man standing at the end of my bed at night. I now understand that's because my brain was most conducive because of the brainwave patterns. As I would come out of sleep there in the hypnagogic state, I would see him standing at the end of my room, absolutely frightening the life out of me. This man that was really tall, standing, looking over me, and I would be running into my mum. Then all manner of strange unfolded, all the paranormal. There was a smell that started to follow me around. It would travel around the house. We turned the house upside down trying to find out what this smell was. We couldn't put our finger on what it was, like a musky kind of smell. But, smells usually linger. This would come and go. It would travel. It would be one place at one time and in another room at another time. It just was not normal, and everybody could smell it. This was the clever thing. Everybody could smell it. And so that led me down the path, really, to understanding, I think something strange is going on here. Now, at the same time, my mum, because there are no coincidences, had found herself a part-time job at the National Federation of Spiritual Healers, which is a healing organization here in the UK. It's now known as the Healing Trust, I believe. And her paths crossed with a medium. And this was the first time that we'd actually learned about mediumship, spiritualism, or anything like that. So she was able to say, my daughter's having these experiences. And then if I fast track a little bit more, my path crossed with a medium at the age of when I was 19. And the medium, first thing out of her mouth, her name was Sheila Thomas, and she was just phenomenal. First thing out of her mouth, I say was, she is still with us, by the way. She's this side of life. First thing out of her mouth was, I've got your granddad here. He's called Stan. She named him. And also, I can see there's a man that's been with you. So you've seen him standing at the bottom of the bed. And what does that smell?
Oh my goodness.
I know. And she told me he's a Native American guide. He's going by the name of White Feather, and you and he have come to work together, and he's asked me to take you under his wing. So I started my initiation and my training at the age of 20, 21 with her. So it's a lifetime. I'm 48 now, a lifetime of walking hand in hand with the spirit world.
That's beautiful. Beautiful.
It
When you
is.
when you started doing your own mediumship, could you just tell us what that was like? Because I know there's a lot of training, sitting in circle, working with
Hmm.
fellow students, and then just branching out. And I know you're very familiar with it now, but the impact that it has on good medium reading has on someone. Do you have any favorite stories?
I do, yes. I think if I start with the development side, shall I? Because I think for many of us starting out, we seem to think we listen to other mediums like me talk and we think, oh, it's all available to them. They can see, hear. No, no, it wasn't like that at all. I had spontaneous experiences that led me to understand there's more to consciousness than we know. But I wasn't walking around picking up on everybody and seeing the dead around me, nor would I want to. I don't do that to even to this day. Um, so I sat when Sheila Thomas took me under her wing. I sat at Hampton Hill Spiritualist Church, which was quite a well-known spiritualist church in the UK because it had produced the likes of Estelle Roberts, who was a very well-known medium. Also Brenda Lawrence, who's part of the SNU. So they had had some very well-trained mediums. We have a UK medium called Colin Fry here that used to go there a lot, Tony Stockwell. The church was known for producing, I think, high quality and having high quality mediums there. So I sat in development with her once a month, every Friday, third Friday of the month for 10 years. I did not rush this. I also would then practice on open platform every other week, which was where developing mediums could come and stand on the platform and learn to develop and learn to do mediumship publicly. None of that was anything I ever looked to do. I came along just interested to the church one day because a friend of mine had said, why don't you come to the church? Otherwise I'd just seen Sheila privately. And I just thought, oh, no, I'll go and check it out. I was 21. It's like, it was all exciting. This is, mediumship. I was pulled up onto the platform and I had my first experience of mediumship, and all I saw was a bald head. And and a lovely lady at the back of the church took it. But what had happened to me was I became extremely hot. I felt like I literally needed to sort of strip off. I felt so hot. I felt a spirit person walk into the back of my auric field. So I felt the push, and then I saw the bald head, and I just knew that's unusual. So it was a tiny amount. And then I just stuck to it and dedicated my time just for the pure passion and interest of trying to understand, if consciousness survives physical death, then I need to develop my own abilities in order to know this. As far as I was aware, there wasn't science. And over the time, I learned to do evidence-based mediumship. And one of my favorite stories that I'm allowed to tell publicly, one of the powerful ones that has stuck with me, because us mediums, and we never remember our readings, right? We're in an altered state. So I rely on the clients to tell me. There's a lady called Sandy, and Sandy Rocket is her name, bless her. She came to see me for a reading, and I brought her mother through, and I could describe her mother to her, the conditions of which her mother passed. And I gave her what I suppose would be a traditional solid mediumship reading. I described the communicator, I then gave evidence of survival, and I also gave the message. So there's three really strong components that are needed to a good message if you're doing it well. So I was aiming for all of that. And as part of the evidence of survival, Sandy's mum told me that there was a ring that she hadn't gifted Sandy because she'd passed too soon and wasn't able to give her the ring, but that the ring could be found in her handbag. And if Sandy went to her handbag, she would be able to find the ring, and her mum wanted her to have the ring. So Sandy said to me, "No, that's not true. We've cleared everything out. You've got that wrong." So I apologized because I'm not infallible. And I just said, "Will you please go and check it out? Let's just put it to the test. If I'm wrong, hands up. I'm wrong. It doesn't matter." So she did. And her dad actually found the bag in the loft in her house up in the attic. And the handbag, he didn't realize it had been put up there, was a special handbag to her, and inside was the ring. It was so touching because no one could know that. Sandy didn't know that. Her dad didn't know that. I couldn't know that. The only person to know that was Sandy's mum.
That's so special.
Another brilliant one is I had a client come and sit here where I am now. I've got a chair opposite with where my clients sit, and I had a lovely lady. I connected her to her partner, and I told her that her soulmate had been with her and was always with her and walking with her always, because the love they had would connect them so strongly that those soul bonds were eternal. And that she was letting me know in spirit that her partner had a bag of ashes in a plastic bag of her ashes on her. And my client went, "Oh," she leaned back in her chair, pulled out the little plastic bag of ashes and said, "That's all I need."
That's
So,
incredible. The
and this is,
validation is there. Yes.
it is, and it's not always like that, and nor does it need to be like that. But can you get that? Yes, you can. And so I could literally sit here all day with stories of what happened to me, what happened to people around me, where in the end you have to say, a lot of the argument that gets put to me from the skeptical side of things is that mediums can't provide empirical evidence. And I don't believe they've looked up the definition of empirical, because when you look it up, it talks about the fact that empirical means through experience and beyond just logic. And I've had so many experiences that are personal, even if subjective, they are experiences over and over and over and over through a lifetime. I have my evidence. And it is repeatable. It's just not repeatable to exactly the same thing every time. But it's there to be had. But people have to put in that work. And I have. I've dedicated my life to it.
Speak a little bit about that because I know when I first found out about mediumship, I took a weekend course, and I'm grateful that I did because it opened my eyes that not only is it possible, but things were coming out of my mind and my
Yeah.
mouth that were accurate. The thing
Mm,
is at the end of the 3 days, the instructor said, "Oh, you're now a medium. Here's a certificate. Go charge $150 an hour." And we're
wow.
talking 20 years ago. So
Wow.
obviously, I did not do that, but there is that kind of training out there.
Mm.
Speak to the commitment of training and also working on yourself because you can't have a whole bunch of baggage and work for the spirit world.
Exactly. Mediums are like fine wines. They get better and better and better the more they age, because mediumship is a blending of minds with the spirit world. So the first thing you've got to do is learn to train your own brain to move into a state of reception and to be out of the thinking mind and the analytical part of yourself. So you're just in receiver mode and get out of your way, basically. My teacher used to say to me, when I step in, spirit steps out. And that's because your brain's so full of activity, it's not in the right gear. So mediums have to learn to change gears and go from the alpha brainwave and beta brainwave states into alpha theta and more relaxed. But that takes practice. So we have to have a practice of meditation, and we also have to have the practice of life. and a few knocks and a few life experiences in order to be able to build and develop empathy. Our own brains have got to develop through life. And so I really believe that I'm going to be, perhaps, I don't want to come across as judgmental. This is an observation. I do believe that lots of people could be mediums because we have a human body and we are receivers, or we are an electromagnetic being. We are in exchange with the environment around us all the time. And if you learn how to see or perceive like you did in the 3 days, then you can give some accurate pieces of information. Just like everybody can pick up crayons and learn to draw and enjoy it, but they're not necessarily Picasso, you know, we can do that. So you get a lot of mediums or people doing mediumship who haven't yet put in the work to grow and mature spiritually. And until you do both things, you're not going to be a real true ambassador and a true channel for the spirit world, because you're going to focus on things like, for instance, talking about people's material world, talking about the things that affect people materially, relationships, blah blah blah. Not saying that's bad, but if you can't bring in that depth of knowledge, or where I'm at now with the soul knowledge, then you're missing such a depth to you that people could be really healing from, and the wisdom. So I think we see a lot of practitioners or people saying they're practitioners who aren't necessarily meaning to be lightweight, but who haven't yet unfolded spiritually within their own soul. Like you say, done the shadow work, done the inner work, looked at themselves, grown, opened in compassion, moved from ego into heart space. And now they're coming at it from a place of pure service and wisdom. That took me a long time.
And you're
Hence,
still doing it. You're
oh,
still growing
I
and learning.
I sit every single Friday for my own development. I've been working 27 years. I am continually growing. I take my direction direct from spirit. They've made it very clear what they need for me to do, where they want to take me, which is why they have now taken me down the soul road, because I was very much an evidence-based medium. I was initially all about the science, understanding science. What is evidence-based mediumship in relation to science? Hence, I wrote books bringing in all the science. And then they were like, right, you've done that. Now you have to put that down, because the soul consciousness, the essence of who you are, is what we've got to get people in touch with, because they have to understand what unconditional love is, because we don't do it here.
Oh,
We
there's so
don't.
much to unfold in everything you just said. Let
I
me
know,
just back
sorry.
up just a little. No, I love it. This is a dance. We have fun. We're both wearing blue. We're
We
soul
are.
sisters. Let's just go back a little, because I know there's some mediums out there that will give a whole bunch of information, and
Mm-hmm.
you don't feel the spirit world, right? So you
No.
start thinking, did I post that on Facebook? Could they have looked it up? Not that it's not impressive, but I know for me, the best readings I've had do have the evidence, but also I'm sitting there with the medium or on Zoom, and I actually feel the presence of my loved one. I hear shared stories and the feelings and emotions and the fun and all that. So having that soul connection, I mean, that's wonderful. There are people that come to see mediums that are suffering from deep, deep, deep grief. And to have someone who is well trained and continues to develop, you can talk more to the need of a grieving person versus taking the 3 day course. And I know you know this, Claire, but one of the reasons I do this certainly is to give people evidence of the afterlife, help through grief, words of empowerment, but it's also to reach out to mediums that are already out there.
Right.
Be better than you are,
Yeah.
be in service, know that we each have an ego. It's very hard to put that aside,
Uh-huh.
but to try to keep your eye on development, on the spirit world, on your soul, on all those good things. Is there anything else you want to share from what I just said just now? I said a lot.
Oh no, I'm totally in agreement. In fact, I think some of the harshest critics that I've ever come across are the other mediums that are judging me. And I think it's because we carry an innate pain because we are painfully aware that a lot of people out there in the world would say that we're crazy, we're deluded, or I would get called things like I'm a grief vampire, I'm a snakeskin, oil snakeskin, whatever it is, salesman. So I think a lot of us are carrying that understanding, which is very private within us, is like, please don't attack me. I'm very sensitive. Please don't attack me. We have to support one another. We have to come together as one. We have to come together in unconditional love. So what Whitefeather started to say to me the past 5 years was, you've got the evidence. It's all very well and good to be able to say, I don't know, Granny saw you yesterday in the shop buying a red pair of shoes. That's wonderful. And people need that healing because they now know that Granny's love is eternal and that there's more, and that gives them the support they need. But that's not enough. We need to understand our own soul self. We need to understand how to embody unconditional love on the planet, because we embody conditional love. And I was experiencing the unconditional love of the guides, and it would move me to tears. But also, Sandra, because I have been around the block a while. What happened to me was a lovely guy called Giles Whitnell walked into my snug here. He'd lost his. I'm full of stories. He- He'd lost his nephew. He was only 18 when his nephew Lucas passed in a traffic accident. Giles found his way to me because he was looking for a medium. Giles himself had had spiritual experiences as a teenager, and he turned his back on it because they'd been extremely scary. He'd lived in a very haunted house and it'd been very threatening. So he turned his back on it. But once he lost his nephew, he found himself in the snug, as I call it, it's my room, with me sitting here. And I brought Lucas through to him. But the strangest thing happened. He looked at me, I looked at him. There was an exchange of Kundalini energy. Now I know what it is. At the time, I was like, what is this? My heart went, ugh. He's looking at me. We didn't know how to say to each other, I know you, but I don't just know you. I literally know you inside out. I know you like I know myself. So he's saying to me, why do I feel like we could just open a bottle of wine, kick back, and I don't even know you? And we were having past life recognition, boom, 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 going like that. All these different lifetimes that we'd known each other, and a whole load of crazy unfolded. And that is just the tip of it. And I realized, I know it sounds crazy, but I'd been speaking to the spirit world by then for 20 years as a medium. It was the first time that I had known myself to be the indestructible soul that I had been looking at other spirit beings as. But they were still outside of myself, if that makes sense. When I met Giles and I connected in with our own soul self. And it was so powerful and so transformative. It shot me into a dark night of the soul. And Whitefeather was saying to me, now you've got to understand, you are this. You are the unconditional love that is indestructible, the energy from which everything is made from. You've got to go and teach people about what love is, soul connection, why it is your loved ones don't die and those love bonds stay connected and you are connected eternally, and that they can do the mediumship. And it isn't just about losing a loved one to the spirit world. How many people could be listening here who have lost loves in their lives that have broken them open? It's understanding that souls orbit around each other for purpose, that we choose to come in to embody physical experience, to grow, to learn. There's so much depth to it. And I'm with you, Sandra. I have seen some really impressive mediums that went so down into the detail of the evidence that they lost the soul connection, the love, and tapping the client into their eternal soul self, because ultimately that's what it's about. Ultimately, that's why our loved ones come back. They're trying to let us know you are eternal. You are indestructible. You are unconditional love. And look at our love. Look at our love, how it's connecting us. understand there's more to life than we have been told. And here I am with you always. It's beautiful.
Claire, I think that's a piece that's missing from most readings. There is the evidence, there is that feeling that the loved one survives and that's with us. And of course, all of that really makes a difference to a grieving heart. But I haven't heard it said the way you just said it, that we leave a reading knowing who we are. It seems like it's more about, is our loved one still around? So could you talk a little bit more about that, who we are? If you could open up more about this unconditional love, because I am a giver, I'm a lover. If you're in my circle, I will love you to pieces. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. However, in the mirror, do I do that for myself? No. Do I know how to do that for myself? No. And you're saying now that we are these indestructible souls with
Mm-hmm.
all this unconditional love. How do we tap into that?
Exactly. And, this was the shocker for me when I met Giles. I was tapped into that. I had a huge mystical experience. It was like a near death experience where you hear them say they go into the love and they're just home and totally accepted unconditionally. I was tapped into that by meeting him. And he was tapped into it. I was in shock because I could see that I hadn't even loved my children enough or well enough. I'd loved them unconditionally. Of course I do, but I would also love them very conditionally, trying to get them to be able to cope in society, to become people that would do well in society and contribute well in society. Whereas I was realizing I was absolutely being accepted for everything that I am because it was all perfectly leading me back to who I am, my eternal self. So that sounds like a paradox. And I'm not saying that we accept all toxic bad behavior. We don't. And what the spirit world was showing me was that we are all soul connected. We are an eternal being. We are a tripart being. So we have a physical body. We have a spirit mirror body, which is an energy body, but we are a soul. So we have those two first things, making us a tripart being, but we can drop the physical body, we can drop the spirit body, but our soul essence, which is unconditional love, which is an energy, is our eternal consciousness, is what we call soul. And when you see yourself as separate to, and you don't see yourself as coming into oneness with that energy that is the source of all of us, that is when you cannot love unconditionally. That is when you put boundaries in because you feel if you can get hurt, then you must protect yourself. So then you start to love from a position of fear and you don't love unconditionally. So most of us, and this was the purpose of soul connection, most of us then will attract to us souls that we will come into connection with, whether that's within our soul family, whether that's that we attract. I write all about this. I can break this down for you, but I'm going, I'm whistle stop touring here for this story. But whether we attract to us maybe a karmic soulmate, a catalyst soulmate, a life partner, a romantic soulmate, or a twin soul, each type of dynamic, two of them, the catalyst and the karmic, are painful because they lead us back to learning about unconditional love of self. The life partner, the romantic soulmate, are loving. That's where we experience unconditional love from someone else outside of ourselves. And when you meet your twin soul, which is one soul incarnate in two bodies, you have to learn to embody both fully within you. Unconditional love of self and unconditional love of others, because ultimately we're all one. It's deep.
It's deep. Can't learn it in a weekend, just like classes.
No, but we are missing this very important factor out of mediumship, which is why mediumship and spiritualism sometimes doesn't get the same kind of respect that the likes of Buddhism or, I don't know, Hinduism or Christianity get, because it's lacking the depth. It's lacking the depth of here, this is your soul, this is your eternal soul self. How do we get back to that? Are we getting back to it? by having painful relationships, losing love, having other souls come around us who mirror back to us who we are, and then learning the eternal part of our nature. So, evidential mediumship is hugely important because it's healing when we have grief. But how do you heal you? So you understand that you are eternal, that you are tapped into that you're not separate from it. So that's where I sound I'm trying to sound as simple as possible, but that's where White Feather then took me into doing soul guidance readings. So I do the evidence-based stuff as well as understanding, oh, you're in a soul dynamic that looks like this. You came in because you wanted to learn this in this lifetime. This person's gone home to spirit for this reason. So, for instance, as an example, just to make it a little bit more easy to understand, say a parent loses a child very young. I will quite often get shown, I'll be given the evidence of survival, and then I'll get shown the soul bond. This is a soul family bond, for example. You have been together in a previous lifetime, for example. This was what was being worked through. This is why this soul has gone home early. And this is what you agreed between you was the purpose, and how you're working with each other or walking with each other still, one in spirit, one here. Because that journey doesn't finish. You then parallel each other. So we have to understand that death ends a life, a physical life. It doesn't end a relationship. It doesn't end a soul bond. And soul bonds are where you can really understand that what God's put together, if you want to put it that way, let no man tear asunder. A soul bond is the unconditional loving bond that happens between two souls that there is no legal piece of paper's got any power over. You know, that soul bond will move away or come together at the perfect time that it's universally right for that soul. So we
Those are
have
so
to understand.
special words. Go ahead.
Sorry, Sandra. But we just have to understand this. We have to, otherwise we'll never understand the nature of it, of how the spirit world can come back and talk to us. It's all part of it.
Makes perfect sense. Someone once said, when bad things happen, it's so easy to be a victim and make somebody else wrong. But they said this: take out a piece of paper, just write, this experience was the worst thing that happened to me because, and then you can get out all that make wrong and everything. And then you say, and this experience was the best thing that happened to me because, and this was the opportunity to declare, to say, this is what I've learned about myself. This is how this hard thing happened. And I went on to do this. And then I met so and so. Because there's always, I don't want to say always, because there's some really awful things that happen in the world. I do acknowledge that. But some of those less awful that still hurt, they're opportunities to grow. They're opportunities to learn about ourselves, to learn about others, to look at that. What am I learning for myself? Sometimes we mirror other people, something we really find annoying in someone else. It's because we might have it within us. And then we can go on from what we've learned to be of service to other people. So I think in hard times, there's nuggets of gold for each one of us. Are we going to choose to be in the driver's seat of our life and look back and look at it from, what is it I can learn from this? Because it sure is easy to make another person wrong.
Yeah.
But looking at them as the eyes of, you're another soul, you're on your journey, we're all connected. Perhaps we wanted to have this disagreement, so this would happen, and then we both go out to help others. And when it's all said and done with, we're family. We are together.
I love that. Exactly. Here's the thing, that when I'm looking from the soul perspective, I can see the perfection in it all. So the most terrible things that happen here, if you really know I am an eternal soul and I am indestructible, you can face anything. And whether you feel you can face it or not is irrelevant. You just are going to, because you are energy, and energy doesn't die. It just transforms. Now, last year, I had a terrible year. I nearly went back to spirit. I was incredibly unwell. I had two very, very painful surgeries and a very, very prolonged, protracted healing experience. And my spirit guide, White Feather, I've got a team of them, but White Feather's the one who brings the wisdom, the philosophy, the teachings through. He was telling me, and it was so clever, he was getting through to other mediums and giving me information. He basically laid out the whole path before I had the first stop. I knew I was going to need two before the surgeon. I knew everything that was going to unfold. And he said, you're getting this information because you were tortured for taking your truth out into the world before, and you were killed for it, and you didn't have a choice. This time, you're going to go through the torture at the time that your message is coming out. My Heaven Sent was being released, my latest book. And if you choose to survive the torture this time, because you have the choice, you will then be able to go out and take your message far and wide. And so I can tell you now, Sandra, for the year that I was in I couldn't even get up. I couldn't get up. A good day for me was to look at my fingers and go, they're not in pain. I can hear the birds, I went to the darkest, lowest part of me that I've ever known. And I was throwing my toys out the pram. Why would I sign up for this? Why do you stand back and watch me suffer in this much pain? My children aren't going to have a mother. My life is over in excruciating pain, day and night for months. And as I come out of it now, it's only as you emerge out of it and you realize I have survived it. Here I am. Here I am. Others might not have done in this side of life, but I made the choice to tough it out. Here I am. I believe everything is taking us higher, because now I'm, one, much more compassionate towards other people's suffering. I understand it. Two, I understand that I am pretty damn tough and strong, even though I'm weak and mortal. Three, I now bring this to my work with compassion and understanding. There's a whole new depth of me in my readings because I'm understanding a whole lot more. And if we really, as mediums, we have to walk our walk. We have to walk the talk, sorry. We can't just talk the talk. I know I'm an indestructible, eternal soul. I know everybody is. Why we have to go through such suffering, I don't know. Why it can be so painful, I don't know. Why it has to be so goddamn hard for some people, why there has to be wars. It's like, I feel that we create all of this ourselves, been given the power to create this. No one ever said that the physical world was going to be easy, that there wasn't going to be earthquakes and viruses, but was it worth it? Is it worth it? We are the universe experiencing itself. And if there was nothing, there'd be no experience at all. So in order to have life and be life, there has to be all of it. And that means at some point we'll experience the really tough, because it's all a polarity. But that doesn't mean we can't use it to elevate us into the unconditional nature of who we are. And that's my practice and my passion and my message now.
That's terrific. Thank you for being a reasonably priced medium. Let me just
Oh.
throw that out there.
Thank you.
I like that. Are you one that does the 10-minute guarantee if somebody's not happy
Oh,
within
yeah.
the first few minutes? Okay, we like
Yes.
that.
Yes. So basically, I know within the first 10 minutes whether if I'm going to be able to establish a link with someone or not. So I'll be the first to say, this isn't it.
Okay.
People wait up to 2 years to see me, so they don't usually want to give up on it. But I'll be the first to say, no, this is too important. This is your mum that's passed, or your dad that's passed, or whoever. You need to know it's them. And I'm not able to give that to you just now for whatever reason. I'm known for that. I'm known for disappointing people, but I won't give them rubbish. If it's not working, it's not working. It's like being on 1 bar of Wi-Fi or 3 bars. I mean, you can't help it. If I can't
It's true.
change, and if I can't change that gear and get into the brainwave pattern that I need to get a really clear connection, or if I'm not vibing well for whatever reason with their loved ones, this is no fault of anybody's. So why would my ego need to feel offended or defensive? Or it's like, this isn't working. And I'm sure that you would much prefer that I say to you, this is not working, and that there is no charge and you'll be fully refunded, because this is not what this is about.
Thank you for doing that. With the time we have left and
Yes.
the fact that You're in demand. I know you've shared so much in your three books. Tell us about your books, which came first. I know you co-written one with our good friend Teresa, so I think
Yes.
that's wonderful. But tell us about your books and what's in them,
Uh,
because I think our listeners and our viewers could listen to you for another couple of hours. I honestly believe that with your stories and your wisdom. But I know you have
oh.
it written. So share the books.
Oh, thank you, Sandra. Yes, so here's another little story, real quick one. I walked into Hampton Hill Spiritualist Church at the age of 21. A medium came to me from the platform and said, "You've come to write for the spirit world." And they're giving me a white feather. And I was like, I won't be writing for the spirit world, but my spirit guide is called White Feather. I'd failed English at school, so I didn't think I could ever write books, Sandra. I hit the age of 40. I moved home, and in that, as I moved home, I got this little room. So I had my own little space. I had little kids. I had no space. I had this space. And Teresa Chung calls me from out of the blue and says, "I met somebody at the Arthur Findlay College the other day who recommended you to me, but I've never heard of you ever." So I said, "Don't worry, because I've not heard of you either." She's written 100 books. Our paths, we just got it. She was talking about the science. I was talking about the science. She was a Cambridge College graduate in theology. And she just said, "Look, I write about the afterlife, but I don't experience communication with the afterlife. Would you collaborate with me on my Facebook page?" So that's how it started. We were getting thousands of views. And so the publisher allowed me to write Answers from Heaven with Teresa. So she wrote from the perspective of a researcher, and I wrote from the perspective of me. And she very kindly introduced me, if you want, to the publishing world and to the public on a wider platform. Off the back of that, I then wrote. So that book really is, it's got, sorry, should you say, that's got stories of other people's experiences as they have felt spirit around them. And also it's about, this is mediumship, what to look for, signs, and all those kinds of things. It's an introduction. I see it as more introductory. Off the back of that, I then wrote What the Dead Are Dying to Teach Us. And in that, I speak much more about psychic ability, mediumship, the science behind it, but not in a blow your head kind of complicated way, just in a very, these are my true stories. These are the true stories of other people. This is the science behind what we know so far. For the analytical part of you that's wanting to doubt and question, satisfy that bit. And then and then in Heaven Sent, obviously I pick up on the soul stuff. You are an eternal soul. You are indestructible. These are the types of soul connections you will have had in your life. This is their purpose. And this is why you can't lose the love that you are.
I feel drawn right now to hear more about the soul, the love, the unconditional love, all of those things. So that's your third book, Heaven
That
Sent.
it is. I've got a picture of it here. Look.
For those listening on the podcast, you can't see it, but you can find it on Amazon or on Claire's website. So, with that, let's go over to your website and talk about that, clairebroad.com. Now, for those of you who are listening, Claire is spelled Claire, and last name Broad, clairebroad.com. What can we find on your site, Claire?
So you can find all about me. If you want to know more about me, you can find about the books. You can find out how to get one-to-one appointments, but they are very difficult to get. The diary opens on a rolling basis, and clients just book their own appointments, because we got to a point where I'd announced the diary was going to open and it would crash like people were booking Wembley Stadium tickets. I crashed Calendly last year. So in the end, it's just like, no, people just have to keep coming back. I know it's annoying, but just keep checking, because if I announce it, it'll all crash. So you can have one-to-one readings, and I do a lot of trainings. I do train at the College of Psychic Studies. I have my own training program, and I have a lot of exciting stuff to come down the line with regards to online training, a retreat, and schooling in this area. But that's all to come. So just come find out about me. I'm on Together with Spirit on YouTube. I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Claire Broad Mediumship. So you can come watch my videos, interact with me. I don't bite.
I didn't think you did. I'd love to know just some closing words from you. And maybe I'm just trying to ask you about the power of taking some time to quiet our mind, whether it's when we're waking up in the morning or just before we fall asleep or maybe sometime during the day. Could you speak a little bit about that? And then just whatever last words you'd like to share with our listeners and viewers today.
Sure. Well, there's a whole universe out there for everybody to tap in. Reality is more wonderful than you can even begin to imagine. And as you fall into stillness and as you quieten in the mind, that begins to open out to you as you begin to train your brain to tap you in as a receiver. So some of the things that I do are when I go to the bathroom, as I wash my hands, I listen to the sound of the water running and I feel the water over my hands. That's a meditation. That's brought me into the present moment, listening, as we all know, to the birds and nature. Just getting still as you wake up in the morning, as your brain is shifting gears. See if you can feel those gears shifting. Just notice how you're coming from a state of relaxation into full awakening, how long it takes you to feel like you're fully up and running. That's the gear shifts. So the more you can learn to become self-aware and then sit in the heart space. I think the biggest thing I want to leave people with, it's okay to feel. It's okay to feel the fear. It's okay to feel the pain. It's okay to feel the hurt. You are safe. You are indestructible awareness. And we run from the pain because it's too painful to face. If you sit in the heart, if you sit with yourself in that stillness and say, it's okay to feel this anger right now or this hurt, and I'm okay as I feel it, I'm okay, I'm still here, then you can start to really embody the depth of who you are. And it's amazing. Those emotions go, they ebb away. You allow, that's my favorite word, allow it to be wherever you are right now. This too shall pass. So I think that's probably it.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Claire, for being our guest today.
Thank you so much. This is a joy. Thank you, Sandra.
Oh, I've enjoyed it too. And for our listener or our viewer, thank you for taking the time to be with Claire and myself. As a reminder, her website is clairebroad.com and her books are titled Answers from Heaven, What the Dead Are Dying to Teach Us, and her latest book with all that love stuff, Heaven Sent Soul Lessons from the Afterlife. And as a reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com, where you can find so many good things there, including classes, our Sunday gathering, demonstrations. You can join my Patreon club if you want to donate $1 an episode. You get all episodes of We Don't Die radio before the rest of the world. You also get a searchable, clickable list of every single podcast I've ever done between the two shows, which is now over 600. And it just shows a little support. So thank you so much. So in closing, my name is Sandra Champlain. I'm always so delighted to be your host on We Don't Die Radio. I do believe that life is an education for the soul and that your life here on earth is very important. So just keep looking for those opportunities, like Claire says, to allow, to not make yourself or others wrong. Just look at it from the soul's level. And I don't think you can go wrong. So thank you for listening or for watching, and we'll see you again soon.